Welcome to Chalk Talk. Chalk Talk is another strategy from the book, Making Thinking Visible. This strategy is most commonly used before a unit or lesson as a pre-assessment. Chalk Talk is a routine that asks learners to consider ideas, questions, or problems by silently responding in writing to a prompt or idea, as well as the thoughts of others. It allows students the opportunity to move from one idea to another in a non-linear way, to formulate questions as they arise, and to take time to build on other people's ideas. The prompt for a Chalk Talk can be a single word or phrase related to a topic of study. This will allow students to report what they know about that topic. Posing a question will increase higher-order thinking, encouraging perspectives and reactions. To set up Chalk Talk, write your words or questions on a large sheet of paper, like chart paper or butcher paper. Place them at groups of tables, or on the walls around the room. You can either have students work in a cooperative group with the same question on each paper, or have students move around the room responding to the prompts. Give each student a marker. As they work, you will move around the room making sure students are following protocols and participating. To increase participation and accountability, give each student in a group a different colored marker. This will allow you to visually assess participation and responses while allowing students to feel anonymity. Present the Chalk Talk to the class, giving students an opportunity to prepare individually. This is also the time to share your expectations for how students will interact, how they should respond, and the time limits. Start your timer and have students pick up their markers and begin. As they work, remind them that any discussion should happen on paper and not verbally, and remind them to respond to each other on paper as well. Move around the room, prompting students to respond to thoughts and ideas, as well as provide positive reinforcement on ideas in discussions. Once learners have had adequate time to complete the protocols you set in place, allow students to discuss verbally. To assess responses, first review for a good general understanding. Ask yourself, are students on the right track? Are there evident misunderstandings? Were there ideas that should be highlighted with the whole class? Let's look at how Chalk Talk went in Mrs. Thompson's class.
I was so excited to try out Chalk Talk with my history class. We are starting a new unit focused on the Cold War. I decided to do a blend of prompts. Some will have ideas, words or phrases, and others will have questions that connect prior learning to the new content. My students worked in groups of 4, and I decided that this time, they would work digitally. I hoped that this would allow in-person students to work with asynchronous students at home. When I introduced Chalk Talk, I told students that any discussions should happen on the slide, about the topic on the slide. I told them they should first write all their original ideas down, then begin to respond to others' ideas. I decided to give the group 2 minutes on each slide and asked each student to pick a different color and font. Let's look at the work samples after the first round. This prompt had the most responses and discussions between students. In previous units we have discussed warfare, and I was interested to see if my students would think beyond a typical war. I could see they applied their schema with germ warfare, and they identified that wars could be fought beyond general combat warfare. I want to make sure that I bring the circled comments to everyone's attention, because these ideas will build throughout the unit. I was pleasantly surprised that there were some students who had some ideas about baby boomers. There are also some misconceptions that I can see, so I'll spend some time once we discuss baby boomers clearing those up. I had bigger hopes for what my students would generate on containment. I made note to spend extra time on this idea, and I know now that I need to find a way to make a connection for my students, so they understand it and how it fits into the Cold War. I decided that this question would be our hook into the lesson, so I will pull together multiple group responses to lead into the unit. This may also be a topic of a think, pair, share, where I get students from different groups to compare their slides.
Thank you for sharing, Mrs. Thompson. Other than the instructional implications that you learned, is there anything else you'd like to note?
For the first time using this tool digitally, I think my students did a great job. I think that next time I'd like to use chart paper and have them write with markers. That way, they can rotate around and build from other groups' ideas, not just their group. Additionally, I know that I need to adjust my time. The first slide took so much longer because they were trying to figure out how to change their fonts and colors.
Good ideas. I'm glad that Chalk Talk allowed you to assess what understanding your students have before getting started in your unit.